What if a promise made under the stars could change the universe? A young boy meets a mysterious visitor from beyond the sky and vows to find her again, no matter the cost. Years later, that promise drives him across galaxies, through science and sacrifice, to a place where love defies the laws of reality. This isn't just a story. It's a journey beyond time, beyond fear, and into the heart of what it means to believe. Stay with us, because this promise might just change everything. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Let's move toward wonderful story. In a quiet village hidden between soft hills and whispering trees, there lived a boy named Joran. He was not like the other children who ran through the fields during the day, chasing each other and climbing trees. While others laughed in the sunlight, Joran waited for nightfall. The stars were his playground, and he found more comfort in their silent glow than in noisy games. Every evening, just after supper, he would climb a small hill behind his grandmother's cottage and lie flat on his back, eyes wide open, staring into the endless sky. Joran lived with his grandmother Lena, who raised him with warmth and gentle wisdom. She often teased him lovingly, saying that if he stared too long at the stars, the wind might carry him up to join them. Her stories were full of wonder, tales of sky beings, ancient travelers, and forgotten planets where time ticked differently. Most people thought Lena's stories were just old village legends, but Joran believed every word. He held those tales close, especially one about visitors who came in silver lights, bringing messages from far-off worlds. He hoped more than anything that one day he might see one for himself. One warm summer night, as the crickets sang and the breeze carried the scent of wildflowers, Joran lay in his usual spot, tracing imaginary paths between the stars. Suddenly, he noticed something strange. A single streak of fiery light cut across the sky, brighter and slower than any shooting star he had ever seen. He sat up quickly. The light wasn't fading. It was growing larger. His heart thumped in his chest. Whatever it was coming. Closer. The light descended quietly not far from where he sat, into the meadow near the base of the hill. It didn't crash. It floated down softly like a feather. Joran stood up, frozen for a moment, torn between fear and curiosity. Then, without thinking, he ran toward it. The meadow glowed with a soft silver light. In the center of the field was a smooth, round object. It wasn't like any machine he had seen before. It pulsed gently, like it was breathing. As he stepped, closer a line appeared on its side, splitting open silently. A door. From the light stepped a figure, tall, graceful, and glowing faintly. Her skin shimmered with shades of soft gold and violet, and her eyes looked like galaxies, deep and swirling with stars. She moved slowly like the wind through water. Joran didn't move. His feet were stuck to the ground, but not out of fear. He felt calm, as though he had known her all his life. In his hand, he still held a few wildflowers he had picked earlier, that day. Almost without realizing it, he stepped forward and held them out. "Hello," he said quietly. The figure tilted her head, then smiled. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft and musical. "You are brave, little one. Most would run from what they do not understand." Joran felt warmth in her words, though they were strange. He looked into her eyes and saw more than light. He saw stories, places, skies he couldn't name. "Will you come back someday?" he asked. She looked at him for a long time, as if she were searching for the right answer in the sky. "Perhaps," she said finally. "But where I come from, time moves differently. What is a moment for you may be a lifetime for me." Joran didn't understand, not completely, but he knew what he wanted. "I'll wait," he said firmly. "And when I grow up, I'll find you. I'll come find you again." The woman looked at him with something close to sadness. She knelt down, so her face was level with his. "That is a strong promise," she whispered. "Such promises can shape more than your future. They can change the stars." "I promise," Joran said again, crossing his heart with one finger. She reached out and gently touched the flowers in his hand. her fingers glowing. Then she stood, slowly walked back into the silver ship, and disappeared behind the door. The craft rose with a quiet hum and vanished into the night sky. Joran stood alone in the meadow for a long time, staring up at where the ship had gone. The night air felt different now, heavier, filled with meaning. He walked back to the house slowly, the stars watching him like old friends. That night, as he lay in bed, he didn't dream of games or treasure. He dreamed of her, the woman, of light, and the promise he had made. And somewhere far beyond the stars, in a place Joran had never seen, the woman stood alone in her own world, holding one of the wildflowers, still glowing gently in her hand. Years passed, and the quiet boy who once gazed at stars from a hill had become a young man with sharper eyes and a steady heart. Joran never forgot the promise he made that night under the glowing sky. While other children moved on from their childhood dreams, Joran held tightly to his. The memory of the woman of light, the one who accepted his flowers and smiled with stars in her eyes, stayed alive inside him. It wasn't just a dream. It had happened, and he believed it still meant something. As Joran grew older, he found himself drawn to books about space and the universe. He read anything he could find, about planets, galaxies, and the strange patterns found in starlight. His mind filled with questions no one around him could answer. By the time he was old enough, Joran applied to study astrophysics at a university, far from his small village. It was not an easy path. He had no money for fancy schools or tutors, but he worked hard, saving every coin from small jobs. His grandmother, Lena, now older and slower, cheered him on with every step. In the city, Joran met people who were curious like him. One of them was Riva, a quiet girl who loved deep space as much as he did. They would sit for hours in the university observatory, watching the sky through large clicking machines. Riva spoke little, but when she did, her words often carried thoughts Joran didn't know how to say himself. Their friendship grew from shared silence and star-filled dreams. It was during one of these long nights in the observatory that Joran noticed something unusual. While reviewing star data collected from a telescope, he saw a pattern in the light, small, repeating flashes that didn't seem natural. At first he thought it was just an error, but the pattern appeared again. The next night, it was too perfect, too exact, like a message written in light. His hands trembled as he printed out the graphs. He brought his findings to a lab technician named Neris, a calm and focused man with a background in signal analysis. Neris was skeptical at first, but as he looked over the information, his brow furrowed. "This isn't noise," he said quietly. "It's a signal, and someone, or something, sent it." Excitement surged through Joran. He couldn't help but remember the shimmering woman and the soft hum of her ship. Could it be her? Had she sent this from wherever she had gone? He didn't share these thoughts with Neris or Riva. To them, it was a discovery. To him, it was a call. Together, they worked in secret for weeks, trying to find out where the signal had come from. It led to a region of space with no known planets, just darkness and dust. But the signal was strong, steady, and real. With more data, Joran presented his findings to Professor Halden, the head of the astronomy department. Halden was old, thoughtful, and respected. After hours of quiet study, the professor leaned back in his chair and said, "This changes everything." Soon, the university formed a research group. They called it Project Whisper. Rumors spread quickly. Some believed the signal was from a lost civilization. Others thought it was just a glitch. But behind closed doors, the project moved fast. Funding arrived from people who had long hoped for signs of intelligent life. Engineers and scientists joined, building plans for a space mission to explore the signal source. All the while, Joran stayed quiet about his true reason. He didn't tell anyone about the night in the meadow or the silver ship. This wasn't about proving something to the world. It was about a promise, a boy's vow made with a full heart. He had no proof she was waiting for him, but every beat of his heart whispered that she was. He worked harder than ever, joining the mission team and helping build the tools needed for deep space travel. While others talked about fame and discovery, Joran focused on the details. He learned how the ship would be powered, how signals would be tracked, and how long the journey might take. The answers didn't scare him. He had already waited years. He could wait longer if he had to. When the day came to board the ship, Joran carried only a small bag. Inside it was a velvet pouch. In the pouch was a ring, a simple band he had made, himself. He had gathered meteor fragments from a lab that studied space rocks. With help from a craftsman, he shaped the metal into something rough but beautiful, placing tiny stars across it. It wasn't perfect, but it was his. And it was meant for her. As the ship rose into the sky, leaving Earth behind, Joran sat quietly by the window. The stars grew closer, and the world he had known became a small blue dot in the distance. He didn't know what waited for him at the end of the signal. It could be silence. It could be danger. But he hoped, truly, deeply hoped, that it would be her. And if it was, he would finally say the words he had carried all these years. I kept my promise. The journey through space was long and quiet. Days passed like minutes, and sometimes minutes felt like days. Joran sat by the window of the ship, watching the stars move past like glowing rivers. Around him, the crew carried out their duties. With careful focus. They were trained for this, prepared for every challenge. But Joran carried something different, a memory, a promise, and a hope that could not be measured or planned for. The ship was heading toward a part of space that no one had ever visited. The signal they had followed was still repeating, steady and strange, like a heartbeat calling across the universe. Joran checked it every day. He knew it by heart now. Sometimes late at night when the lights were dim, he whispered to himself, I'm coming. One morning, if morning could be called such in deep space, the ship's scanners picked up something unexpected. Floating in the darkness was a large structure, unlike anything made by human hands. It was shaped like a palace with tall towers and wide halls glowing softly in colors that changed with every movement. It didn't spin or drift. It simply hung there, still and waiting, as if it had always been there. Everyone aboard the ship stared in silence. Captain Malar, a quiet and thoughtful leader, gave the order to slow down. The crew worked together to approach the palace carefully. As they got closer, they noticed that the walls were made of a crystal-like material, shining with lights from within. Joran stood at the front of the group, heart pounding. He knew this place. He didn't know how, but he knew. When the ship docked, an opening appeared in the side of the palace, like a doorway unfolding from the wall. It didn't make a sound. Captain Malar ordered a small team to explore, and Joran was among them. He stepped off the ship and onto the surface of the palace. The ground beneath his feet was solid but soft, like walking on smooth glass warmed by sunlight. It was quiet, so quiet that he could hear his own breathing. Inside, the walls glowed with gentle light. Strange patterns flowed across the surfaces, changing shape as he walked past. It felt like the palace was alive, watching them. The deeper they went, the more the others hesitated, but not Joran. His steps grew faster. He could feel something pulling him forward, something familiar. At the end of a long hallway, the space opened into a great chamber, and there, standing in the center, was her. She had not changed. Her skin still shimmered with soft gold and violet, and her eyes still held galaxies within them. She looked at him and smiled gently, as if no time had passed at all. You came, she said, her voice just as he remembered, light, musical, and kind. Joran stepped forward slowly. He reached into his pocket and took out the ring. I made this, he said, his voice steady. For you. I kept my promise. She took the ring in her hand and looked at it closely. It is beautiful, she said softly. Made from your world, yet touched by the stars. He looked at her, searching her eyes. I meant every word, he said. I came all this way because I still believe. I still want to be with you. For a moment she didn't answer. Then she looked down, her face touched by sadness. There is something you must understand, she said. My world is not like yours. I am bound to it, and it is bound to me. For you to stay here, for us to be together, you would have to change. Joran listened carefully. He didn't speak yet. He let her explain. To live in this place, you would need to let go of who you were, she continued. Your body, your thoughts, even your sense of time. It would all be different. You would become something new, something not fully human. The words were heavy, but Joran stood tall. He had come this far. He had waited so long. He had given his life to a promise. I'm not afraid, he said. If that's what it takes, I'll do it. I'm ready. The woman looked at him, and something in her eyes changed. She reached out and placed her hand gently on his chest. A warmth spread through him, followed by a sharp wave of pain. Joran gasped and dropped to his knees. His body felt like it was breaking and rebuilding at the same time. He could see flashes of light, feel his thoughts stretch beyond the edges of his mind. Time moved in strange loops. He didn't know how long it lasted. When it was over, he stood slowly. His skin glowed, faintly. His hands looked the same but also different, more graceful, more distant. He looked at the woman. She smiled, though her eyes were wet with tears. You did it, she whispered. You crossed the line. As they stood there side by side, the chamber around them began to shake. A deep sound echoed through the palace. Cracks formed along the glowing walls. What's happening? Joran asked. They know, she said quietly. There are forces that do not want this. They will try to stop us. From the shadows, shapes began to appear. Tall, dark figures with burning eyes. Joran felt fear, but he stepped forward holding her hand. We'll face them, he said. Together, and so they stood, united under the light of two worlds, ready to defend the promise that had brought them here. The shadows moved closer, silent, but full of power. Their eyes glowed like coals, their shapes dark and shifting, as if they were made of smoke and stone. Joran stood beside the woman of light, no longer just human but not entirely like her either. His body pulsed with new energy, his senses alive in ways he didn't yet understand. Still, fear stirred inside him. The palace around them shook with a deep rumble, as if the very walls were afraid. These are the guardians, she said, her voice quiet but steady. They exist to keep balance between worlds, our bond, our promise. It has changed something. They think it should not be allowed. Joran looked at the dark figures and then at her. He remembered every moment that led to this. The lonely nights on the hill, the long years of study, the ring he carried across the stars. He had not come all this way to give up now. He took her hand and squeezed it tightly. Then we'll show them what love can do, he said. The guardians attacked with speed and force, but light met shadow in a clash that echoed through the chamber. The woman raised her arms, calling on the energy of her world. It shimmered around her like a shield. Joran felt the power inside him rise in response. He didn't know how to control it, but his heart guided him. Light poured from his hands, in soft streams, joining with hers to form a glowing wall that pushed the shadows back. The guardians howled, not in pain but in protest. They were not evil. They were protectors, shaped by a law older than memory. To them, love between a human and a starborn was a threat to order, something unnatural. But what they didn't understand was that some promises were stronger than rules. Some bonds once formed could change the very nature of the universe. The battle lasted for what felt like hours, though time had no meaning in this strange place. At last, the guardians began to fall back. The combined power of Joran and the woman had become something new, something that could not be broken. One by one, the shadows faded until the room was still again. The palace, once trembling, grew, quiet and calm. The light from its walls turned warm and soft, as if offering peace. Joran dropped to his knees, breathing hard. The woman knelt beside him, her hand resting on his shoulder. "You were brave," she said. "You stood against the Guardians, even when you didn't understand what was at stake." "I did it for you," Joran replied, looking into her eyes. "For us. I didn't want to lose you again." She smiled, but there was sadness in her gaze. "We have won the battle, but now we face a choice. The Guardians are gone, but the balance they protected is still delicate. If I leave my world, others will suffer. If you stay with me, your earthly life will slip further away." Joran looked down. He knew this moment would come. The promise had always meant more than words. It was a path he had chosen, even when he was a boy. He looked around the chamber at the glowing crystals, the peaceful air, the beauty of a world beyond his own. Then he looked at her, the one he had crossed galaxies to find. "Is there another way?" he asked. "Something where neither world has to be lost?" She thought for a long time. Then she stood and reached out a hand. "Come with me," she said. Together, they walked deeper into the palace, through doors that opened on their own, into a quiet room filled with soft light. In the center stood a small platform, floating slightly above the ground. "This is the heart of the threshold," she explained. "Here worlds can meet halfway. It is rare. Few ever reach it." Joran stepped onto the platform. It glowed under his feet. The woman joined him, and the light wrapped around them both, like a warm breeze. "If we bind ourselves here," she said, "we will not live in one world or the other. We will become something in between. Guardians not of law but of connection. We can open paths between stars, show others that love is not a danger but a bridge." Joran felt tears come to his eyes. He nodded. "Then let's do it." The light rose, lifting them into the air. It spun slowly, surrounding them with soft colors. As the light grew stronger, Joran felt his fears melt away. He was no longer a boy searching the sky. He was part of something bigger, a link between two hearts, two worlds. When the light faded, they stood on a new ground. Around them, stars blinked like candles, and a new world stretched out, a place where people from Earth and the stars could meet. Behind them, the palace stood tall, now shining with golden light. Years later, stories would be told of the boy who followed a promise across the stars and returned with a new world in his hands. They would say that love had changed the stars, and that it all began with a quiet boy, a field of wildflowers, and a vow whispered under the night sky.